Greetings, and this is going to be a video on international trade, and you've got some questions in the discussion board on IMF and the Federal Reserve. So I mentioned in one of the responses so far that there are some questionable histories of, sorry about the video, it's not the highest quality. I don't have a computer video option right now, so it's gonna be just a little crooked, so just turn your computer, just pick up one side of your computer. Anyways, the IMF, there's a book I read years ago, and it's called Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and generally the implication of the book is the IMF does a lot of lending to, mostly the idea behind the International Monetary Fund is to fund poor countries' projects. Like you want to build a dam in some poor developing country in Africa or maybe Asia or something like that, then they need the funds, the resources to do it, and because they're poor, they don't have them, and so the IMF will come along. But typically IMF doesn't make simple credit card style loans. Credit card, remember, is basically a loan. You go charge something, you are borrowing money from the credit card company without collateral. You're just saying, hey, per the agreement we had when I signed up for the credit card, I'll pay you back and give an interest, yada yada. Well, with a collateralized loan is they say, hey, you need to put up some collateral, such as a house. Right? And so with the country, it would be the IMF comes along, and typically they have some kind of collateralized loan, and usually the collateral is natural resources in the country. So if you read the book, and there's a lot of implications beyond just that book, that a lot of loans are made with the idea that the project will never pan out as expected, and so the payments on the loan are not going to be made, and then what happens is the IMF has now control of various resources in the country. And so the IMF is funded mainly by the big Western powers, and again, the idea that they present themselves as is we're just here to help. Like, what did Reagan say? 8 scariest words in the English language. And the Federal Reserve is really not that far apart. So the Federal Reserve is created by the money men. You can watch the money men video. You can read Creature from Jekyll Island. It's 1,000 pages by G. Edward Griffin, the foremost authority on the Federal Reserve. It was created by the Nelson Aldrich senator, the Rockefellers. I forget the name of the people that were there, but these are the people that owned 1/6 of the world's wealth at the time. And they met on Jekyll Island, which is in South Carolina, I think, just off the coast. And it's in a super high-end resort, kind of like Bretton that happened later. But and they met together and they created a private bank that had the monopoly on the printing of currency. And so that's what the Federal Reserve is. They are a privately owned bank. They, like the Fed wants, they work in collaboration with the government as they lend. Right now, what's going on is the government is borrowing about probably close to 200 billion, but at least $100 to $200 billion every month. Okay, every month, and they're getting that money from the Fed. The Fed is issuing bonds, so they're buying bonds, I should say, from U.S. Treasuries and stuff to the tune of about $100 billion a month. Now the Fed has said they're going to stop doing that, but they said that last summer, and I said they would not stop doing that, and they didn't, of course. They also said they were going to raise rates. I said that's not going to happen. I mentioned some other videos that I had previously, but of course, none of it happened. Now they did raise rates from 0.18% to 0.8%, and so inflation at 10%, and interest rates are at 0.8, as in 0.8%, so less than 1/10 the inflation rate, about 8% of the inflation rate. And so anyways, the Fed, you can look at the history of the Fed, again, Creature from Jekyll Island. I'll actually post a video on that as well. But the Federal Reserve has a very special relationship. Now, allegedly it was created with the idea of creating a stable currency and a stable economy. It's been terrible at both, right? So what happened after the Fed was not long later, you have the Roaring '20s created by the Fed's infusion of lots of credit into the monetary system. You had a run up in the stock market, and then the Fed starts cutting back. And according to Ben Bernanke, the Fed caused the Great Depression. Milton Friedman has written extensively about it as well. He says the Fed didn't do enough. Bernanke says, yep, you're right. The Fed caused the Great Depression with their poor intervention for the problems they caused. And what you've seen in 2008, again, the Fed caused the housing bubble. From about 1980 to today, you can look at the downward trend of interest rates. They look like this. If you draw a straight line, that is, they go to like this. And then from 2008 to today, they are essentially look like that. They essentially look flat. So obviously there were some ups. There's a little blip in 2018-19 when what happened is the housing market was going up and they started to raise interest rates. The housing market went like this, and then they lowered them back to zero. The housing market went like this almost, right? So if you're looking for a house, this was the price then, now the price, right? So I know some people looking. We were very blessed because we got it in 2018. End of 2018, because we had our first boy right at the beginning of 19. So we bought right at the bottom of that dip, right? This is what the housing market looked like. So anyways, yeah, so the Fed, it's a little basic story of the Fed, and I'm gonna post a couple of links that I think you'll find interesting. All right, thanks.